Breaking news on Martyn Lucas Investor. We are looking at NVIDIA Corporation. The full technical analysis. We're looking at the charts, the RSI, the MACD, the buy levels, the sell levels. I'm going to do a full analysis for you, and we can see if NVIDIA has more to drop. Is it more room to drop? Maybe go down to that $70 and even a buy level of even around $30. Or we're going to continue higher and get that 2x we're hoping for, getting to that $200 mark and beyond. I'm going to give you the full technical analysis for that, so let's get straight into it. So this is a chart for NVIDIA. We are currently on the daily time frame. What that means is every single candle you see here represents one day. We have been in quite a in a fair sell-off at recently. We have gone down from the highs of $140, we've gone all the way down to $100, which has taken us down 28%. So people are feeling it. There are people that are losing out because they're buying NVIDIA on margin. There are people that are getting liquidated who are longing NVIDIA. There was a lot of hype around this stock, and people are feeling the consequences now. So what does this mean? Is this correction the end? Last week we looked at the earnings, and during that earnings, not the earnings, sorry, we were looking at different earnings. We were looking at the earnings for, I believe it was, we looked at Apple, Microsoft, for example, Amazon, and during that time, NVIDIA did go to downside. It did go to $100. We are looking at NVIDIA's earnings in 24 days. That will be the key factor in all of this, where NVIDIA's price will go. That will be very, very important for the stock. But right now, we've got 24 days until the earnings, so we need to start getting ourselves positioned for the earnings, and make sure we have a clear idea of how we want to trade the earnings and how to trade up until the earnings. So we did hit $100. That was my first buy level. What does that mean? We did have an amazing bounce. We actually made 20% off that trade. $100 was a key level. Analysts were calling for $100. I was calling for $100. The charts were calling for $100. If you remember, there was resistance at 97. There was resistance previously at $97 before we had that sell-off. We hit $97 back in March of 2024 after that very big rise to the upside. And once we hit that $97, the reason it was resistance is because after that we fell about 22%. So is this going to be the same as before? We did drop 22%. We went all the way down to $76, but we doubled in price. We went all the way back up to $140. So is this the same? Let's see if that is the case. One thing I would like to do, which I wasn't going to do, is find a tool on TradingView which allows us to copy the trend. Let me see if I can find it for you guys. Give me one moment, and I think it is this tool here. So with this tool here, we'll be able to tell if the same will be occurring. It is a bar pattern. We'll take it from that high to that sort of the next all-time high, and we'll copy and paste it. Is it the same pattern? So if we bring it up to all-time high, it is pretty similar. We'll have to make it a bit bigger and longer, but I'm going to put that bar pattern on top of this bar pattern. That's from the past. If we make it a bit longer, so that coincides with that high. Here we go. So all I've done, you see this blue bar chart here, the chart is a copy of the last pattern here. This was the pattern which took us from $97 all the way down to $76. If we copy it here, the same all-time high, it was an all-time high then, new all-time high here. We had that initial sell-off. That sell-off was the same in both cases, about down 18%. Then we went back up about 18%, and then we had our second sell-off, which took us down to that $100 mark, 27%. Previously, that did not happen. We didn't have a sell-off that drastic, but we did move back up like we have recently, and then we came in for a final move to the downside to around that $97 region. So is this what's going to happen next? Maybe. the past doesn't mean the future, but the past can give us an indication of the future. And what that's showing us now is we've had the move to the upside. What that's suggesting from the past is that means we're going down to $97 before we had this amazing run all the way back up to $230. So that's the price target. A lot are saying, Martyn is saying we can get a 2x, and this will indicate that there is a 2x. If we copy the structure from here, we do have a bit lower to go, maybe to $93, but then there is a possibility that we'll go on another massive run all the way up to $230. So that is our best case scenario, is if we have a redo of what happened when we hit the all-time highs last time, which will be up to $230 before we do get another sell-off. Before that level, it says we are going down to $97, and that is coinciding with my level. $100 was my first buy level. We have already had a 20% move to the upside, which is great. A lot of people took that trade, but people want to get back in. The market makers and the institutions are probably going to be bringing the stock price back down, so they have another chance to buy it. And because we've already bounced from $100, it's not that $100 is not going to be that safe level anymore. It can bounce lower than $100. So get ready. I will have limit orders set between $95 and $97 for that secondary bounce. And that secondary bounce is what can take us up to $200. However, if the S&P takes a turn for the worse, we are looking at the S&P as well, because the broader markets will have an effect on NVIDIA. If the S&P 500 continues its move to downside, geopolitical issues do worsen throughout the week, the S&P, in my opinion, can go down another 3 to 10%. So let's talk about the worst case scenario for NVIDIA. We need to have our best case and our worst case scenarios in play. We can't just go all in on one level. But my first level to buy is $95. So that I'm going to take note of that, and I'll be putting my buy levels between 95 and 97. Okay, we get to that level and we continue selling off. There might be a bounce, so you can do it as a trade. That's probably how I like to do it. I like to buy and trade out of it. And what do I mean by that? It will be a simple trading position, and I'll show you what that will look like. It will be a long position at the $95 level, stop loss at around $93, take profit just in line with the trend that we are on the downside, so something like $114. So you can either buy it for your long term or do it as a trade. I predict that at between $95 and $97 there will be a nice move to the upside, and we can try and take our profits at $113. And then if it does continue to sell off, my next buy level would be much lower. It would be levels that we haven't seen in a while. It would be previous all-time highs where we had a little bit of a sell-off. We went up to $74, sold off to $64. Obviously, that was pre-split. So next buy level for me is between $70 and $75. I'm not going to go all in at $97. If it does take a turn to the downside, I will be buying more between $70 and $75. There's one more thing we can look at on the chart basis, and that's the Fibonacci from the low to the high. That will show us not too much for this specific trade. I mean, it does have higher targets between $150 and $170, whether it's that's more to the upside, and we'll look at that if the stock does start moving up to the upside. Next week on my show, I'm going to be looking at areas to take profit, but right now we're trying to find the best level to buy, and that won't help us if we have bottomed out. Again, that's not going to help us. So yeah, for me, $97, I'm going to be buying a position there, either trading it when it hits the next buy level, sell level, or I'll buy some there, and the next level I'll buy is between $70 and $73. We are going to look at the RSI, which is very important. If you do enjoy the video so far, or if it's giving you a different perspective, please do hit the like button. It does mean a lot. It means I'll do more videos like this for you, keeping you updated on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, however much you like. I will keep you updated. Do subscribe if you haven't already, but do please hit that like button. It will really help the community out, the NVIDIA community. It will help me out, it'll help the channel out. So the RSI currently sat at 40. Does that mean much? Let me go back into the 1 day charts to give us the RSI. Yes, it's sat at about 41. Previously, a few days ago when we had that sell-off to $100, we were at levels that we hadn't seen since April 2024, which marked the bottom of that sell-off that we just saw, that sell-off that was about 22% down. It marked the bottom of that, and then we went on an 88% move to the upside. So we have triggered the same RSI at 33. So that does give us some indicator that prices were oversold and we can continue to the upside. However, without looking at previous zones, an RSI of 40 is actually not an amazing thing. And in general, not in the stock market, an RSI below 50, between sort of 30 and 50, 30 and 45 is the bearish control zone. The bears are in control of the stock right now, according to that. However, with a stock like NVIDIA, where it's very much a growth stock, has been going to the upside for years now, with not drastic sell-offs or prolonged sell-offs, that doesn't really apply. We have to reassess and say that levels, we have to look at previous levels, because it's very unlikely the stock will go into RSI levels of 15 or 18. The time when that will happen is if we suddenly drop to $70, and we always have to have a plan B, and my plan B is to buy between $70 and $74. Of course, there's a plan C as well. And those are when recessions come. That's when the most amount of money is made, and my plan C is buying the stock between $30 and $37, but I'm not going to go into that much. But I am letting you know I've got a plan A buying at $97, plan B buying at $70, plan C is in place as well to buy it between $30 and $40. Very unlikely that will happen, but it's always great to plan so you can make as much money as possible. That will be in the case where a recession comes. That will be in case where a war might break out, and it could be a very sudden drop. So I don't mind having some limit orders set up in case that does happen. And that's when you would see an RSI of oversold in between 15 and 16. But very unlikely to see RSIs like that with NVIDIA. You then look at the MACD. The MACD is not as bullish. It's sort of in the bearish controls, so the momentum's to the downside. It's red. However, we are trying to turn more green. We are trying to show a bottoming out structure. Ever since we've gone red, when you go red, that's an indicator to sort of stay out of the stock, and it has been fairly right in the past. For example, when we ticked green, we went on a nice uptrend, taking us up about 30%. For example, the first day we turned green, if you bought on the indicator, you would be up 60%, and if you sold when it went red, you'd have saved yourself 14%. So some people use that indicator, and right now it's turning to the upside. So maybe we'll start seeing some green candles on the MACD. We can also look at the Bollinger Bands. We are in the middle of Bollinger Bands. It's saying the lower level is $71 and the higher level is $140. So $71 would be that secondary plan B buy zone of the Bollinger Bands, and the $140 will be trying to get a retest of the all-time highs. So those are all levels where you can either trade, buy, or sell. Let me put it all together in a very simple way, everything we've gone through, and I'll put them into prices. Number one, buy level at $97. Either you trade it, sell it at the level I gave you early on in the video and try and buy back lower, or you buy at $97 for the long term. Again, nothing I say is financial advice. This is what I am, with my chart analysis, I'm doing for myself. So that's the first option. Plan B, you've either made money with your trade, or you want a secondary buy zone. That's between $70 and $75. That coincides with a lower RSI. That coincides with the chart I just showed you about the Bollinger Band, which is another technical indicator. Plan B. Plan C, always have a bit of money on the side, never go all in my opinion, and that's a recession, war situation, $30 to $40. So let's ignore that for now because that's unlikely. Then we look at the upside. What areas do we sell? The first area to sell is if we hit $97, is that trade setup I just showed you. Next level to sell These are limit orders to sell now, would be around the last all-time highs, $142. And then finally, you've got those levels of $240, which I showed you why. So you've got three sell levels. First is a trade. Second is a long-term, more of a long-term area to sell, 141. And then the main long-term level to sell is 233. Those are the sell levels. So I've showed you the buy levels, the sell levels. If you have any further questions, please do let me know in the comments. Now let's quickly look at some fundamentals. However, most of the fundamentals Martyn does, I just like to look at a few questions for an AI stock from an AI algorithm. What are the growth prospects for NVIDIA? We all know the growth prospects are AI and machine learning, data centers, gaming industry, automotive sector, professional visualization, expansion into new markets, financial performance. NVIDIA has a strong track record of revenue growth and profitability supported by robust balance sheets. So you can never really be too concerned when buying NVIDIA. You know, in the future, 5-10 years, you'll be in profits. Then we've got what recent news or events have impacted the stock. Earnings anticipation. NVIDIA is expected to reveal key details about how its customers are profiting from its AI chips in the upcoming Q2 earnings call, which we'll be covering live on the show, so keep an eye out for that. This announcement is anticipated to bolster investors' confidence and potentially drive the stock price higher. AI and new product releases. The introduction of new AI chips tailored for the Chinese market and continued development of its AI chips tailored for continued development of its AI ecosystem has been seen as significant growth drivers. However, potential export restrictions on advanced technology to China could impact the market performance. So yes, that's something to take into account. They've got this new chip for Chinese markets. However, depending how politics go, depending who's in power, that might not affect the stock too well, put it that way. Market performance analysts. Rating analysts, including those from Goldman Sachs and Bank of America, remain optimistic about NVIDIA's future. They highlight NVIDIA's leadership in AI and GPU markets, projecting further upside potential for the stock. Bank of America reiterated its price target of 1,500, suggesting 2 to 24% upside. So yes, that is in previous terms. Let's move on. Who are the key competitors? AMD is a competitor, Intel, Qualcomm, Alphabet, Google, Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, and Apple. So those, if you like this industry, those are all other stocks that you can diversify with and buy as well to diversify. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, because at the end of the day, it's not purely about the company. It could just be about the industry, and there's other industry leaders as well, even though NVIDIA is probably the leader. Yeah, definitely the leader. I also asked it, how do and can current geopolitical events affect the stock? These are things you need to take into account. This can be what brings it down to $70 if the fears, if people get fearful. Export restrictions. The US government has imposed and could further impose restrictions on the export of advanced semiconductor technologies to China. This can directly affect NVIDIA's sales, as China is a significant market for its products. Tariffs and trade barriers. Tariffs or other trade barriers can increase the cost of NVIDIA's products in China and other countries, potentially reducing demand and affecting revenue. Regulatory scrutiny and antitrust actions. Mergers and acquisitions. Regulatory bodies worldwide scrutinize NVIDIA's mergers and acquisitions. Future regulatory hurdles could affect NVIDIA's strategic growth plans. Supply chain disruptions. Geopolitical tensions between major economies, US, China, or US, Russia, can lead to supply chain distribution disruptions. For example, semiconductor manufacturing relies on materials and components sourced globally. Disruptions can delay production and increase costs. Economic sanctions, cyber warfare, and collaborations and joint ventures. So that's just some more information so you can understand what can bring the price down and what can take the price up. You need to see what the narrative is. And in my opinion, I do enjoy trading stocks like this because the trend is to the upside. However, there's plenty of time where you can accumulate more shares by not having more money, by trading the stock. For example, if you selling at the top, and it's not just selling at the top, why there is specific indicators which tell you why, and why there is a good reason that it's higher risk to sell. You might not sell at the top, you might sell at 133, you save yourself some money, you buy more shares at $100, and then you have more shares to take profits with. So I do like trading. If it's your first time here, please do hit the like button. Do consider subscribing and join us for the main show, which is every day, every trading day. Martyn is live and will answer your questions. I will also answer any questions you have on the technicals of the chart of NVIDIA. Until next time, make sure you do check out, there'll be some videos over here and over here which you might enjoy looking at, other NVIDIA videos that you might not have seen yet from our channel and from Martyn, so please do check them out. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, but until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.